Welcome to the Business of Government Hour TV, a video companion to our flagship radio program. I'm Michael Keegan, your host. Each week, government executives and thought leaders join me for an informative, insightful, and in-depth conversation on improving government and its effectiveness. These individuals are truly changing the way government does business. What is the mission of the U.S. Customs and Border Protection's Office of Field Operations? How is CBP pursuing innovative tools and strategies to meet its critical mission? I'll explore these questions and much more with John Wagner, Deputy Executive Assistant Commissioner of the Office of Field Operations at CBP. My co-host from IBM is Don Fenhagen. Take a look and take a listen. Download the entire interview at iTunes or businessofgovernment.org. John, would you briefly highlight the key strategic priorities and goals of the CBP's Office of Field Operations? How do you seek to achieve these goals?
It's, continuing to define better ways to, efficiently and most importantly, securely, move cargo and enable people to move, lawfully in and out of the country. We see quite clearly our role in supporting that, supporting the growth of the economy. We take that very seriously. And, as we implement, enforcement measures to take care of the law enforcement and national security work that we do, again, it's weaving those into how we also improving the processes. We don't see these as opposing goals. We really see this weaved as one single goal, that good enforcement and good security is good facilitation and vice versa. And you don't necessarily need to sacrifice one for the other. So it's really building that into your day-to-day operations, building that into your strategic visions, thinking about how we improve processes and technology really to help us enable that goal. And then, develop our workforce. We have a large workforce. We're spread out around the country, around the world. How do you communicate with them effectively and timely? What does the workforce need? What do they want to learn about and grow? And, how do we feed them the information that they need to excel at their jobs? How do we equip them? How do we get them the right technology that's helping them do their job instead of the other way around?
Sure.
Right. So, it's developing that workforce and building the next leaders out there. We're not going to be around forever. How do we build those next leaders to take our places? And, how do we continue to develop that?
A lot of people don't know how diverse Customs and Border Protection is and the different missions that we serve. You, as Deputy Executive Assistant Commissioner of the Office of Field Ops, can you talk a little bit about what that means and what the Office of Field Operations is in comparison to kind of the rest of the CBP enterprise?
So I'm the number 2 person within the Office of Field Operations. So I support the Executive Assistant Commissioner. So I'm his deputy. And, then under me, there's a whole organizational structure, which leads out into regional field offices and then ports of entry level and then workstation levels and, cascading downward. And then we're structured, again, at all the ports of entry around the country. We're half of the organization of CBP. The Office of Border Patrol, U.S. Border Patrol is, the other big half. And then we have, the Office of Air and Marine, and we have the Office of Trade, and then all sorts of other type support offices and other smaller operational offices within those.
So, John, when you think about your responsibilities as the Deputy Executive Assistant Commissioner of Field Operations, what are some of the key management challenges you face, and how have you sought to address those challenges?
I think it's no different than a lot of large organizations.
Sure.
It's increasing workloads with available resources to do that and available technology to do that, and it's not just keeping up with the pace of the growth, which is a good thing, but trying to get ahead of that and trying to forecast out how do we get ahead of this? What are the challenges that are coming at us? What are today's risks we still need to address, and are we addressing them best? Are our resources aligned to the different risks and threats that we're facing? Is our technology up to date? And is it functioning the way we need it to function to support what we have to do? And then all the administrative work that goes on.
Mm-hmm.
We hiring the right people? Do we have enough people hired? Do we have them distributed correctly where the workload is? And then, right down to the tactical operational level, looking at the enforcement work that we do, the national security work. Are we focusing on the right threats and the emerging threats and the known threats? Are we focusing on the right people that give us concerns about their travel? Are we addressing them in the right manners? What else can we be doing? What are the gaps? So it's really, and then, you look at the drug smuggling, narcotic smuggling, the cartel movement of narcotics. Are we focused on the right, challenges that are out there? Because, like we mentioned, very diverse mission,
Mm-hmm.
right? Are we covering all of the important things adequately and balancing enough without, the biggest thing, without grinding lawful trade and travel to a halt,
Yes.
right? So it's doing all this work within that and we think if we do that properly, it actually accelerates travel.
Mm-hmm.
And it accelerates the movement of cargo across the border. And good, smart law enforcement work done within those confines will speed those transactions up. And that's really what we aim for.
Finding that balance between facilitating trade and ensuring security is really essential, and it's that balance that we're all seeking, I guess, and to keep us all safe, but keep us traveling effectively. Would you tell us kind of more about the ongoing efforts in the Southwest border enforcement and what's being done to improve the Southwest border security? Maybe just talk about some accomplishments you've had and some of the big challenges that are out there.
Yeah, I think the biggest enhancements we've made over the years. I worked on the Southwest land border a long time ago. The only technology we really had was a drill and a hammer, and we'd knock on things and drill things all day long.
A lot of people say that's the best.
They still have use today. But I look at the systems now, the imaging systems that we've been able to, design and develop and deploy, and our ability to scan a vehicle or scan a truck or a train as it's moving, and allow, to image the entire contents of a tractor trailer, and how our officers are getting really good at becoming like radiologists and reading those scans and pointing out what doesn't belong on those complicated scans. Really, it's an incredible talent and skill that, they develop in doing this. And what's next for those systems? And I think as we're contemplating advances in those systems that will allow us to almost combine systems and do a combination of high energy and low energy. So cars or trucks could drive right through without actually having to stop, and the driver get out. And then we scan the truck and the driver gets back in, and, the time and the resources involved with doing that. So the new systems, I think that could dramatically change our enforcement posture if we can develop these. And this is kind of which is what we're working on now. If you look at, could you actually screen and scan 100% of the trucks coming in? We do the trains, right? The train just moves through, but because we have the driver in the truck, we have to build a different system to do that. And how does that change now the process of importing cargo? And if we couple that with the work we're doing with facial recognition, because we know the drivers are, and if we can couple that to speed up and automate a lot of those transactions, it's really looking at some exciting developments, I think, over the next year or two or three in how goods and people cross the border, doing that.
So, John, would you tell us more about the roles of the National Targeting Center and the Automated Targeting Center and what they play in your efforts, and what are you doing to enhance them and derive some benefit from the intelligence that these two technologies and efforts provide?
Yeah, this is a center that we have built up over the years. It started as a handful of officers. Actually, were inspectors back then, pre-merger days, after the attacks of September 11th. And, in a building in a room at the Ronald Reagan building at Customs headquarters. Just a handful of people answering the phone and providing enhanced support to the officers out there at the ports of entry. That these officers had access to run additional queries, deeper queries, access additional databases that you just didn't have in the field. And we could start to consolidate that. And over time, we've built that out into this incredible analytical and field support process, where we have all pretty in-depth analytical capabilities and systems to send all of our advanced information in, set conditions to triage out information we're looking for, run that against known law enforcement information, known intelligence reports, and use systems like the advanced targeting system to be able to manage that data and send that back out to the ports of entry to say, these are the highest risk people or cargo, coming in or leaving the United States today. And it's really the central point for the all of that analytical work that gets done. And then it's also a resource when the officers out there come across something, they have a centralized place to call that can do the deeper analytics, the deeper data connections, the bridges to the intelligence community's classified information, and get more into the in-depth mechanics of some of those processes. So it's we're very proud of that center and how it's grown over the years. It started out looking at just people and travelers, and we've built a whole cargo mission out of it for commercial cargo. And how really it has grown over the years into expanding into not only the partnerships with the U.S. law enforcement and the U.S. intelligence communities, but the foreign partnerships as well too. And it's really just an incredible asset that we have, slowly but deliberately built over the years. But it's absolutely critical to the risk management approach and how we, conduct inspections and analysis to determine what's harmful and what's good.
So, John, given your background and the evolution in your current leadership role, what makes one an effective leader? And perhaps you could illustrate how you've been such a leader.
There's a couple of parts of that. I think at a basic level, it's, as simple as being the leader you want to work for and asking yourself that tough question every day. Would I want to work for myself? Right? And what do we look for in a leader? And am I consistently providing that, to my subordinates, to my colleagues, to my superiors? Am I demonstrating that day in and day out? And there's all different facets that go on with that. But it's also building out that vision for the future, building a pathway to it, explaining that day in and day out to all the people that also need to understand that to get things done. We like to pride ourselves in the Office of Field Operations that, to quote Commissioner McAleenan, we're relentlessly self-critical. We're not about sitting around defending the status quo. Mm-hmm. It's always about what's next, where are we going, how do we do things better? And, what can we be doing more of and next? So as a leader, you want to build those visions. You want to define that future and build reasonable plans to actually accomplish that, and then see it through the workforce. That are we actively moving towards these things? And then, of course, developing your staff and the workforce to also build towards that vision, mm-hmm. Right? We just don't want to stagnate, right? The world's changing. We change with it. We're aggressively trying to be ahead of that and really building that culture into our environment.
Be sure to join me next time on the Business of Government Hour for another informative, insightful, and in-depth conversation on improving government and its effectiveness. Until then, it's businessofgovernment.org.